Hey, pro wrestling fans, it's your buddy Mike Messier, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff going on in wrestling right now, pro wrestling that is. However, I just want to use this time to talk about one story that might get blurred up a little bit or just ignored or just not talked about a whole lot. Billy Jack Haynes has been arrested. Basically, there was a woman's body discovered in his home. Billy Jack Haynes is said to have lived with his wife. He's 70 years old right now. And, he claims that he went out for a walk and he came home and there was a bunch of police tape and police outside his home. We don't know if the woman that was found deceased in his home is his wife for 100%. But that's what people are thinking. And so Billy Jack has been arrested for that. He has not faced trial. I don't think he's pleaded one way or the other. Based on that quote that I just saw, I believe on the Sportster website, we would think that Billy Jack Haynes is going to claim innocence in this. The last couple of 10 or 15 years or so, a lot of these RF videos, apparently the RF video has interviewed Billy Jack 4 times. And he's had a lot of conspiracy theory stuff. Conspiracy theories are always kind of interesting because some of these conspiracy theories are proving to be true. You know what I mean? I mean, you figure out some of this stuff. The conventional stories are not always all there is to some world events. That being said, some of the stuff that Billy Jack Haynes said was pretty out there, even for people like myself who do like a good conspiracy theory or discussion. Billy Jack Haynes, his career, just speaking on the highlights of it, one highlight goes back to that Battle of the Muscle Men, Billy Jack Haynes versus Hercules at WrestleMania 3. I was just thinking of that match. I think that's the only match on the show of WrestleMania 3 where there's color, i.e. blood. I couldn't think of any other matches. Andre and Hogan didn't have blood. Savage and Snuka didn't have blood. But I believe at the end of the Hercules Billy Jack, which I think went to a double count out, didn't Hercules wrap the chain around his wrist and smash Billy Jack? And so Billy Jack Haynes, if nothing else, you can say he's the only guy to bleed at WrestleMania 3, for what that's worth. He always did feel like a guy whose best days were kind of early on when he was in the Pacific Northwest and in Florida Championship Wrestling. He did very well. He had a feud with superstar Billy Graham. I think they had a cover, if I want to say The Wrestler or Inside Wrestling magazine was like Billy Jack Haynes putting a rear chin lock on superstar Billy Graham. But his time in the WWF was only about a year and a half, late 86 to, it said January of 88. I can't remember him being there. Was he in the Survivor Series 87, Billy Jack Haynes? I don't even think that he was, to be honest with you. I mean, if anything, he would have been in the opening match, the Steamboat, Savage, Jake the Snake, Brutus Beefcake. Who was the 5th partner on that team? I think it wasn't Sam Houston, was it? But Hacksaw Duggan. So I can't think that, Billy Jack Haynes was not in the main event. It's Survivor Series. He wasn't on the tag team. I'm talking about 87. So I don't think he was even on the Survivor Series 87. My point is, when I read that they said that Billy Jack Haynes was gone from the WWF in early 88, I don't even think he was there that long, to be by my recollection. But maybe he was. Maybe he was still under contract, but just not wrestling on TV or whatnot. Point is, Billy Jack Haynes had an awesome physique, one of those 80s wrestlers, same cut of cloth, you could say, kind of like an Ultimate Warrior, kind of, Kerry Von Erich. There was a Sports Review Wrestling with Billy Jack Haynes and Kerry Von Erich posing together. Kerry had the NWA World title. Billy Jack Haynes, I believe, had the Southern title, which was the #1 title from Florida Championship Wrestling. So it's just kind of sad, if Billy Jack Haynes actually did this crime. It's sad for him. Obviously, it's sad for the woman that died and her family and her relatives. It's just a weird situation. We don't know much about it, but I mean, people are going to talk about it. I think a lot of wrestling fans, you know, in their younger years may not have ever heard of Billy Jack Haynes unless they did the historical thing and watched at some point WrestleMania 3. I mean, I tell these young wrestling fans that you should be studying your historical wrestling shows, and WrestleMania 3 should be something that you're watching or you've watched, okay? Billy Jack Haynes had a nice match against Brutus Beefcake, I think from Madison Square Garden, that was aired on, you know, Saturday Morning Wrestling that I remember watching. I remember he was kind of mentored, I believe, by Stan Stasiak, the former WWF champion in the Pacific Northwest. I remember, for those of a certain age, you might remember John Cougar, the rock musician. At one time, he was just known as John Cougar. He later he later changed his name to John Mellencamp, which was his real birth name, because he said his father didn't know why he couldn't use his real birth name. And then eventually he brought the John Cougar back as the middle name, John Cougar Mellencamp. Well, 2 or 3 years later in the world of wrestling, Billy Jack, as he was known from the movie character, Billy Jack brought back his real last name, Haynes, Haynes, and he said it was because his father, who was legally blind at this point, wanted to enjoy hearing his son's name called by the ring announcer. So Billy Jack went from Billy Jack to Billy Haynes, and then eventually, I think it might have been when he went to the WWF, started calling himself Billy Jack Haynes, which I think was a nice name. I think that was a good wrestler name. There was a time in his career when he wrestled as a really goofy character in WCW, Jim Herd. Was it Black Hood from a little town in France, you know, like Black Sword or some shit, Black Belt, or oh God, what was the name of that character? It was the Black Mask, or he was like wearing an executioner's mask. He did wrestle, I believe, Matt Bourne at the Great American Bash 91. What was the name of that character? The Black Executioner or some horse shit? Which was kind of interesting because Billy Jack Haynes, even in 1991, had some name recognition around, you know, real wrestling fans, but so did Matt Bourne. And Matt Bourne's at that bash wrestling as a goof, as Big Josh. I did do a 1991 Great American Bash panel podcast with my friends Dan and Benny in the ring several years ago. I don't know if that's on this channel or their channel, but you can dig it up. But basically, what the hell was he called? Black Blood. That was it. And he was managed by Kevin Sullivan. So, I don't know. Basically, the Billy Jack Haynes story is kind of another wrestling tragedy. You know, cue up Dark Side of the Ring. I guess here's another story for you guys. You know, Billy Jack Haynes could totally be a Dark Side of the Ring. 70 years old, being arrested for the accusation of killing a woman, which is likely his wife. I mean, what can you say? Obviously, the woman is deceased. A woman is deceased. We hope that it's not his wife. We hope that Billy Jack didn't do it. But regardless, someone here is deceased and Billy Jack's been arrested. That's all we know, as far as I know as of this minute. But what can I say? I guess I'm just lamenting some highlights of Billy Jack Haynes. If you have thoughts and opinions, memories of Billy Jack Haynes. Obviously, he's not deceased, but it's just kind of sad that at 70 years old, this guy who wrestled at WrestleMania 3 had an LJN action figure, which is probably worth a lot of money because I think that was one of the least produced ones, maybe in like the 3rd or 4th edition. But anyway, if you have any thoughts or further questions, I will answer them as best I can. But just tonight, I'm just sitting here thinking about the career and the sadness of Billy Jack Haynes. It's your buddy Mike Messier. Super Bowl weekend, I am predicting the Chiefs victory, let's say 27-17. Mike